This project promised a strong synergy. Drake's commercial power meets PartyNextDoor's knack for moody hooks. In theory, that blend could reclaim a top spot for Drake, especially since his name still commands respect on streaming platforms. Early previews hinted at a mix of Drake's smooth R&B-laced bars and PartyNextDoor's atmospheric production, a style that excited longtime fans. Yet the question looming overhead was whether Drake could keep the focus on music instead of reigniting past feuds. Once the album dropped, immediate reactions were split. Some embraced the vibe, praising PartyNextDoor's contributions and Drake's signature melodic delivery. Others said the album felt muddled, pointing to Drake's inability to move beyond his longtime rivalries. Despite those complaints, SSS for You racked up huge plays in its first week, showing that even in murky waters, Drake's star power remains. On one hand, Drake evokes sympathy, suggesting he's a misunderstood figure constantly targeted by critics. On the other, he paints himself as the toughest voice in the room, ready to battle any challenge. These extremes appear in back-to-back tracks, leaving listeners unsure whether to root for him or question his authenticity. One moment, he's lamenting that he's been wronged by the rap establishment. The next, he's dismissing everyone else as beneath him. Hip-hop thrives on confidence, but it also rewards honesty. Fans sense that Drake's desperation to maintain relevance has him clinging to every angle. Victim 1 minute, aggressor the next. Instead of showing range, he often comes off as unfocused, as though he can't decide which persona sells better. Critics argue that this confusion reflects deeper anxieties. After his public losses, especially to Kendrick, Drake may be struggling to sustain his old image while forging a new one. Among the most talked about songs on SSS for You is Give Me a Hug, which insiders say contains subtle shots at Kendrick Lamar. Drake dismisses dictionary rap, a phrase many interpret as ridicule for Kendrick's lyrical complexity. He implies that hip-hop has become too intellectual, pushing back against an artist who routinely delivers thought-provoking content. To some, Drake's stance reads as petty. It's a swipe at one of the few modern rappers who's managed to blend mainstream success with deeper substance. Kendrick's accomplishments, sweeping the Grammys, a monumental Super Bowl performance, prove his mastery of both critical and commercial lanes. By challenging that success, Drake positions himself as defiant but potentially out of touch. Even if he claims not to care about awards or recognition, the timing of his comments suggests otherwise. Kendrick's rise feels like a threat Drake can't quite ignore, and Give Me a Hug appears to be his attempt at putting Kendrick on notice. However, many fans see it as a hollow effort. If Kendrick isn't responding, Drake's jabs echo into empty space, only emphasizing his frustration. Joe Budden, a retired rapper turned influential podcast host, also finds himself in Drake's crosshairs. Drake references Budden's co-host, Melissa Ford, in a way that feels pointed and personal. Budden has criticized Drake for years, but the significance here is Drake's choice to reignite an old spark. Why single out Budden if he's supposedly irrelevant? Maybe Drake hopes to curb Budden's critiques, which reach millions of listeners each week. Still, taking swipes at a man whose entire career now revolves around dissecting rap drama might backfire. Budden is free to respond at length on his own platform, potentially drawing more attention to Drake's insecurities. It's yet another sign of Drake's contradictory state, proclaiming indifference to detractors, yet openly targeting them. Fans are left wondering if this is clever marketing or just more evidence that Drake can't let anything go. In pure commercial terms, SSS for You soared upon release. Streams spiked, playlists featured multiple tracks, and social media was on fire with hot takes. PartyNextDoor's atmospheric sound often garners praise, giving Drake a moody canvas to rap or sing over. But just like some of Drake's earlier projects, this one risks feeling like a momentary sensation rather than a cultural reset. Kendrick Lamar, by contrast, has cemented his influence with each album, culminating in major accolades that push hip-hop forward. The difference is striking. Kendrick's music resonates long after release, often sparking discussions about lyricism, social commentary, and artistry. Drake's work sells, but critics argue that his reliance on feuds and catchy one-liners could fade quickly. Drake's repeated attempts to bury Kendrick's accolades, like brushing off the Grammys, further underscore the gap. If he truly believed awards held no merit, why boast about his own successes in the past? The inconsistency suggests these disses are more about wounded pride than any genuine stance on the music industry's flaws. One glaring example of Drake's frustration lies in his references to "not like us," a phrase tied to a Kendrick track that effectively showcased how unstoppable Kendrick's movement had become. For Drake to reclaim that slogan might seem bold, but it mostly serves to remind everyone that Kendrick turned it into an anthem. It's as if Drake can't resist bringing up his biggest sore spot, accidentally highlighting the very moment many believe he lost the upper hand. Instead of letting the phrase die, Drake's new usage keeps it front and center, reinforcing that Kendrick's version remains the more defining statement. Observers worry this points to Drake's inability to evolve. Had he come back with a fresh vision, innovative production, thoughtful lyrics, he might have redirected the narrative. But by dwelling on "not like us," he only reopens old wounds, confirming that the impact of Kendrick's success still haunts him. Beyond the controversies, there's the question of how SSS for You positions Drake moving forward. He seems stuck in a cycle, caught between craving industry validation and dismissing it whenever it benefits Kendrick. Meanwhile, PartyNextDoor's contributions risk being overshadowed by Drake's perpetual feuds. Those who value P&D's artistry hope he can shine without having to compete for attention with Drake's name-calling and beef replays. For Drake, the path ahead is uncertain. Many fans insist he's a living legend who still rules the charts whenever he drops new music. Others feel he's coasting on past glories, recycling the same emotional appeals and lyrical feuds to remain in the headlines. If Drake intends to retain his influence, he may need to step away from these tired rivalries, focus on refining his craft, and let the music speak. Innovation could rekindle the excitement that once followed his every move. But if he continues spinning in the same drama, even his most devoted fans might grow weary. SSS for You offers a snapshot of Drake at a crossroads. The album's commercial success proves he's far from irrelevant, yet the persistent tension with Kendrick Lamar, and even lesser squabbles like the Joe Budden jabs, suggests he's still chasing closure on old feuds. His conflicting roles, victim one minute, aggressor the next, leave listeners questioning whether he truly understands where he stands in today's hip-hop landscape. Kendrick's influence and accolades loom large, and Drake's repeated attempts to belittle them only highlight his own turmoil. Meanwhile, PartyNextDoor's presence seems secondary to an overarching saga about Drake's ego and insecurities. Will Drake move beyond this cycle, embracing fresh ideas and forging a new era for himself? Or will he stay locked in a game of endless one-upmanship, where each diss merely reopens old wounds? The outcome will shape Drake's legacy, but for now, the script feels eerily familiar. Rather than rising above past defeats, Drake keeps replaying them, and hip-hop is left wondering if he'll ever break free.